We are now recording and welcome again, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for choosing to attend our Color Your School Green webinar on clean heating and cooling for schools. I'm Brady Ferguson. I'm Director of Public Engagement with the Climate Solutions Accelerator of the Genesee Finger Lakes region. And it was great to work with Katie and Amber and other Color Your School Green members, as well as our presenters today to put this together. What we're going to do is have two presentations, and then we will have time for Q&A at the end before we wrap things up by 1 o'clock. I would ask that if you do have any question or questions for the presenters, feel free to drop them in the chat so we can come back to them later. Or if you want to just hold on to your questions and then you'll have the opportunity to ask them out loud at the end of the meeting. But we do want to make sure they have time to cover what they want in their presentations, and then we'll move on to the Q&A at the end. Brett Peters will be our second presenter, so I'll introduce him before he goes on. But our first presenter is Fran D'Ambrosio. And before I pass it over to him, I'd like you to know a little bit about him and the great work he's doing with the Canajoharie Central School District, where he is the energy manager. Now, that district is located in central New York, has a student body of 900 and a staff of 190. He was brought on in early 2023 through funding awarded by NYSERDA's P12 Clean Green Schools program, providing dedicated management to embark on many energy projects. These included planning and implementation for the first EV mandate from New York State, developing ground source and air source heat pump systems for heating and cooling, constructing district-wide solar energy, and helping with current and upcoming building projects. In the process, he assembled an energy team to create an energy master plan that includes a comprehensive evaluation of existing energy systems, current and future energy needs, and identifying and prioritizing recommendations to integrate decarbonization processes into current and upcoming building projects. In addition, obtaining grant opportunities for infrastructure related to EVs, clean HVAC systems, and solar energy. Finally, infusing these projects and initiatives into curriculum, specifically in STEM classes and engineering pathway courses. Engaging stakeholders to promote and support these initiatives is a part of these efforts and brings him here to share the benefits. So we really appreciate you, Fran, making time to join us today, and I'll pass it over to you.
All right. Thank you very much. As was stated, I'm the energy manager here at Canajoharie Central School District, and I have been here since early 2023. Our superintendent applied to NYSERDA under their P12s program. So this idea really came from the top down, which is super beneficial. If you have projects or administrators, it's best that they're on board ahead of time. So that makes things much easier. But I'll just go through the process of what we've done here, give you an overview of our district, give you some context on our size, and just go through how we got to where we are. And then after, we can answer some questions if you have any. So we are the Cougars. We are black and gold and going green. And I am the lead of the CCSD Power Team. And POWER stands for Practicing Optimization with Energy Resources. So we thought that was very fitting. Next slide, please. Our services, of course, we're a public school district. We have about 900 students and employ about 190 staff. We cover about 100 square miles of towns and villages in Montgomery County. So that's about central New York. And our National Center for Education Statistics locale code is distant 32. So we consider ourselves rural. But that number's a little less than rural, but we're farm country. Our facilities include an elementary school, a middle school, and an athletic center with an indoor pool, and that is one complex, 3 separate buildings connected by enclosed hallways. We have a separate high school and a separate transportation facility. Next slide, please. So our resources really to get us from where we started to where we are now, as mentioned, we used NYSERDA for quite a large portion of this, their P12 Track 1 program, which I believe now most of the Programs have been moved to FlexTech, but you'll have to look into that on your own and verify that. So we used track 1 and track 2 for HVAC and indoor air quality design and improvements. And we utilized the NYSBIP program, the New York School Bus Incentive Program, for clean transportation planning and acquisition of buses and chargers. And finally, a lot of the resources that I personally use to develop everything that we've done has come from Energy Star, from EPA. That stuff is available online. They have great resources to tap into and follow what they have. Now, for most of their programs and documents, I didn't exactly use what they had produced as intended, right? I tailored what those resources were to fit us best, or to fit how we work best and fit our culture. So an example of that would be um, they have a guidelines for energy management and an energy assessment matrix. So the energy assessment matrix basically lets you know what's missing in your energy planning. You're supposed to fill in the far right column with what you think you're missing, but it works in a group of three. First is no evidence of a plan. Second is some evidence of a plan. And third is a fully implemented plan. So I just presented that to our team and asked them to just do one, two, or three instead of writing down what they thought we were missing, and just scored that whole sheet. So a maximum score, 100% would be a three, right? So we started off in the low twos, and now we're in the high three quarters of two. So we made quite an improvement. Next slide, please. So our cross-functional energy team, this is, really important to getting from where you are to where you want to be. Um, so as the energy manager, I'm the link between all of these team members, right? Everybody wears a million hats. And it's hard to get somebody to do all of these different things. But if you have one dedicated person that can receive all the information, disperse all the information, meet with people, it's really what makes this plan a success for us. So I get all of the information, I meet with the team, and then we took the time to, develop and implement, pardon me, our energy management plan. For us, this was a very large document because I'm dedicated. Some plans are very short and to the point. Ours is about, I don't know, 90 pages, and it's about 40 pages of narrative, and the rest is all supporting documentation that I've assembled through my position here. So, as I mentioned, having upper level support is great. So, our superintendent is on our energy team, our facilities director, right? Because everything that involves the facilities, um, he should know about. He should be able to have his input and say, "Yeah, I like this idea, but I'm going to have a problem maintaining this type of system in the future," right? So, you just want to have all of those people in. Because we included education, our curriculum director is in there, the principals for each building. They're responsible for everything that goes on in that building. So, of course, they're included. We have a teacher on our team. He's very involved in local government, sitting on many boards. So it's good to have him. We get to gauge the temperature of the community and get that feedback and know what's going on. Because we're doing clean transportation, we wanted to have a bus driver on there to know their feel about switching, to the zero emissions mandate, and how they feel about buses and being rural. How's that going to work? How are these routes with the range limits going to work? So that input is vital. And finally, you might not think of it, but our SRO, which is our school resource officer, he is in the halls everywhere, every day, right? He checks all the doors. So he gives me a lot of feedback. He says, "Hey, this light's not working," or "Hey, this hallway's cold," or "Hey, this window doesn't seal," because he's in there. He walks around all day. So that type of input is critical. He also helps develop a lot of the fun things that we do for the students. So it's a great aspect for that. Next slide, please.
Sorry to jump in here,
Yeah.
Fran. I just wanted to ask Katie, would you be able to change the view so it's full screen with the slide, just because some of the smaller text is hard to see with the view there. Sorry to interrupt the flow, but just wanted to. make
It's
sure
quite
people
all
can read
right.
everything on the slides.
Sorry about that. Is that better?
That is better.
Yeah, that's yeah, a lot better for me. Thank you.
All right.
All right, next slide, please. All right, so we started probably as most schools with many issues and many things that just get built up and built on over time. New things come into play, old things just get left in place. So we had to start by establishing a baseline, which provided the starting point for planning all of our corrective actions and projects. So I'll touch on the photos that are over there on the left side a little bit. So there you have a overhead projector, still plugged in, consuming power, but has been replaced with either a smart board or a Promethean board. So this was just a simple thing to go in and say, we're not using this equipment. Why is it still here? Why is it still using energy? Of course, we had to get permission to, surplus it, and once we received that, so we were able to take things like that out. We looked at weatherization, door seals, window latches, things like that, for a few reasons. One is energy, but two is air quality, right? So if your building's not pressurized correctly, we had some Canadian wildfires a couple years back, and if you don't have that positive pressure in the building, then all of those gaps not only waste energy, but they can also let those contaminants into the building. And then down there at the bottom, you have stained ceiling tiles, which is probably more common than it should be, but I'm sure is out there quite a bit. So it indicates that there's a leak, right? It's either a roof leak or a plumbing leak. So if it's a plumbing leak and it's definitely on the heating system, it definitely could be associated with energy loss. But these tiles are prone to moisture retention. So one of the bad sides of that is possible mold growth. So we wanted to address that. So after our baseline and looked at everything, we did walkthrough audits and looked at all of these items in the photos to identify our no and low cost energy conservation measures. So all of these on the left there are basically no cost or low cost. Initial no cost measures were implemented that included HVAC and run times and set point adjustments. So we were able to save within our first year about 18% of our heating bill just by changing set points and stuff like that. So of course, the deletion of unnecessary devices, we implemented computer power management and made energy supplier choices. So these are all no cost or low cost situations that could be taken care of quite simply just with walkthrough audits. So low cost measures were implemented that included roof and heating system leaks, seating and replacement of the ceiling tiles. As you can see in the picture, there's one missing. That space above the ceiling is not kept up for cleanliness. So we don't want those contaminants in the building. And then for future projects, we start to look at what we need and we start to develop saving metrics for capital intensive projects. For this, we use the technical resource manual from New York State. It's quite complex, but with some basic math skills, all of the inputs for the formulas are in there, and you can get a general idea of what your measures might cost. And then you can make the business case, and then you can get the support that you need to say, hey, we're going to spend whatever, we're going to spend 1 million, right? But over the course of the next 5 years, we're going to save 1.6 million. So you can prove that the project certainly will pay for itself. So that was our foundation for moving forward. Next slide, please. Of course, we had transportation in New York State. We have a zero emissions mandate. So we looked into what's it going to take to make this transition. Part of this, obviously, is clean, right? We have zero emissions. So it's not only the students on the bus, it's also the bus driver, your staff, but it's also the communities that bus drives through. So with us for 100 square miles, that's a lot. We had our first responders training, and we had 120 first responders show up from surrounding communities. So that really lets you know how many people can be affected by where that bus travels. So we completed our fleet electrification plan through NYSERDA. This completion also provided added incentive eligibility for some of their programs. So we utilized that for sure. We are experiencing our first zero emissions vehicle. We do have one bus now, and we've been running it since the beginning of this school year. And our bus is V2G, which is vehicle to grid capable. So if you do use NYSERDA's funding, you'll see that there's an incentive to actually have that capability on your bus. So if at some point you say, hey, I want to use this bus as a clean backup power source and plug it into your building, right? Let's say you have a power outage. Then you can do that with that capability. You just also have to have a V2G charger, which at this point we don't just yet. So, and then there's electric vehicle supply equipment. Once you have an electric bus, you have to have a way to fuel it. So this is an added expense and effort that has to be taken into account. We chose a direct current fast charger, level 3, for a few reasons. We chose the largest battery bus that we could get and the fastest, most powerful charger that we could fit in our panel without any upgrades, which is 120 kilowatts. And this reasoning is that most districts are usually looking at how can I get through this transition as inexpensively as possible. But the problem is school's not in all the time. Let's say you have a gas main break and you have to evacuate students, but you bought the smallest battery and you're requiring midday charging. Well, now you can't get those students home at 10 o'clock because your buses aren't charged enough to do it. So we went through our plan and made sure that we could avoid all of our midday charging and only charge at night. We can charge during the day if we want to, but charge at night is the focus, so that if there's a superintendent's conference day, an early dismissal, an emergency situation, we still can utilize an electric bus in that situation. We did use a dual port. We only have one bus, so this extra port allows us to support visiting electric school buses. So if you're out there and you wanted to take a trip to Canajoharie in your electric bus, we can help you charge so that you could get back home. But also this helps with our fleet expansion in the future. We can just go ahead and get another bus and we don't have to go through all of these infrastructure hurdles. Next slide, please. So this is where the big stuff starts to happen. We decided to do a district-wide solar. This is our on-ramp for electrification readiness. So because we're changing to clean HVAC, which is electrified systems, we wanted to have the power available. So this is located in front of our bus garage. It was a shovel-ready site. It was a large field in front of there that we mow on a regular basis. So it's not used for farmland or anything like that. It's just part of our lawn. And it's a very short interconnection because the utility pole that you see in the picture is the pole that we are connecting to. So that reduced a lot of costs. So we had shovel ready to reduce costs, and we had super short interconnection to reduce costs. So these are a lot of the things that we look at. You'll notice as I go through these projects, we try to utilize what we already have, right? Where does it suit us best to do it? A lot of times you'll think of a project and it may require another building or a lot of trenching. So we try to avoid all of that, right? So we look at it as this is where we are and this is what we have. So let's utilize it to the best. This is conducted under an energy performance contract, which means that the project savings or the electricity that it generates helps pay for the project. It's going to offset 80% of our electrical costs here at the district. So that's quite a substantial savings. But that is more, the project costs less than we are actually receiving. So it helps cash flow. In the meantime, until we actually get the electric buses to help utilize this field, we have a positive cash flow from this situation. Next slide, please. So now that we have some electricity going on here, right, we can use it, right? So in the future, we're going to use it for buses. In the interim, we're going to use it for clean HVAC to increase our cash flow. So we're trying to meet the classroom temperature legislation, although this project was enacted before that legislation actually came into effect. So this wasn't our motivator, but it is our solution to meet that. So we are using ground source heat pumps for the Nellis Athletic Center, which was part of the three-building East Hill complex, connected through enclosed hallways. Um, we're going to use ground source for our large spaces. We're going to use it for the gymnasium, the music rooms, things like that. We just felt that large spaces were best suited for this technology. Um, and this building, the athletic center, has a small practice field behind it. So we'll be putting in a vertical well field. But once that well field is in, that practice field will be returned back to a practice field. So there'll be no evidence that a well field is there. So we're not disrupting anything with that. So that was one of the main choices for that building and that area to do that. We had space under the pool that was suitable for our manifold connections. You need to bring all of these well field lines in, connect them all, disperse them out to the pumps and everything else and all the heating units. So we had some space under there, which was suitable for that. It's not a a super clean space, but it's just a connection space, right? It's just rough plumbing. It's not there's no mechanicals or anything that have to be incorporated under there. Um, and then this is probably the biggest part of utilizing what we had. So we had an obsolete kitchen up there at the athletic center. And we decided to convert this into the pump room. So originally we were going to make a pump room um, and build a separate building and put all of the equipment in there and try to make it an education center. But that room itself wouldn't have qualified for building aid because it wasn't a indoor space. It wasn't a student space. So then we looked at the kitchen and says, well, this is already inside the building. It's already accounted for. So we can get aid on using this interior space. So that was a cost savings measure to look at, again, what we had and how can we use it. Next, for the rest of that complex is air source heat pumps. So these are all smaller spaces and best suited for that technology. We decided to do 3 classrooms per condensing unit. So what this does for us, let's say you have a breakdown. Right now you have a rooftop breakdown, and let's say it controls a whole wing of the school. So that whole wing could be shut down either without cooling or without heat. But with 3 classrooms per unit, what happens is if we go down with a unit, we've only affected 3 classrooms. So for the day or maybe 2 days, we can take those students and find another space where they can still be educated within the building. We're not down a whole wing. We decided to put the condensing units on top of load-bearing partitions. So this dramatically cut down on ceiling and steel work, which saved a lot of money on costs. So these are just some little tricks that we did to try to make this as feasible as possible. And then finally, to offset all of this load is rooftop solar. So we're going to replace our fossil fuels with electricity by doing rooftop solar. It's a ballasted system. And it's going to be a behind the meter, which makes it a microgrid, right? Which means that the power that we generate doesn't go to the utility. It goes directly to our equipment. So we don't have battery storage. We did attempt to do find some funding for that, but that fell through. So that's unfortunate. But we will still be pursuing that. But while the sun is out, okay, if the grid goes down for some reason, it could be a winter day when the sun is out, we still can run this building, right, with heating. And if it happened during the summer, we could run this building for cooling. But this also provides a space for, let's say, an emergency cooling or warming center, a first responder center. We are a community-based school. We are the hub of the community. They use the pool, they use the gymnasiums, they use the cafeteria for all sorts of events. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to support those activities with the design of our project. And then finally, this project with the solar, the gas savings, and the switch to electrified systems actually produces net operational savings every year. Yeah, so this is pretty impressive for us. We're very excited to have this going. Next slide, please. All right, so some of our funding, I've covered some of this. So we use NYSERDA's P12 Clean Green Schools Track 1 and Track 2. I do believe that Track 2 is going to have another round, and that's a competitive solicitation. but I believe there's going to be a round 3 coming out. So that could be good if you're looking at some big projects, and we use that for our project. NYSERDA's New York School Bus Incentive Program for our electric school bus and charging vouchers. The Department of Energy class phases 1 and 2. So I was part of the cohort that took part in developing and designing this educational series. I believe it's still out there. I haven't looked into it since we finished participating. They did have a second round, but I think some recent changes have pushed that to the wayside. EPA Clean School Bus Rebate was another stacked amount onto NYSERDA's NISBIP. So we were able to get our first school bus for almost free, but when we use IRA ITC credits, that will cover the remaining costs. So we'll have our first electric school bus would have been free. And then, of course, there's the New York Sun incentives through the state that offers a certain portion for your solar projects. So we used all of these funding sources to make all of this stuff happen. Next slide, please. All right, the exciting part, right? The curriculum. This is why we are all here, right? We're here at the school because of students. So our geothermal pump room, as described, is in our old kitchen. This kitchen originally had 2 doors, one to go in, one to go out for the serving line, and a glass wall all the way down, right? So we're going to reutilize this space. We're going to leave the quarry tile in there. We're going to leave the glass in there so that we can use this as an educational space. It's really just being designed as a learning center. So we're going to offer instructional tours, right, for our own students, for the community, right, because geothermal is a technology that can be used in homes. It's not just limited to the school. So the community can look at it. And then, of course, other school districts, if they want to come in and take a peek, the doors and the room will be open and tours will be available. So we're going to color code all of the piping in there so that we can explain what it does, identify the purpose of all of this stuff. We'll have a digital dashboard which shows our savings between emissions and energy, you know, how much we're actually saving by switching to this type of system, help bolster the support for these types of systems. And then, of course, we'll have posters of the life cycle of the project and how everything works. So really make sure that the number one stakeholder is the students get as much information out of this project as we possibly could do. We just recently did an outdoor classroom, so we'll tie that in. We'll take some trips up to the solar fields. We'll look at the roofs and from the ground and take a look at the solar and just tie all of this stuff all together and let everyone know about this new energy movement that really is very beneficial. Next slide, please. All right, stakeholders, obviously students, but this was a whole school approach, right? It included students, it included newsletter that we publish on our school website quarterly, quarterly presentations to the Board of Education to make sure that they knew what was going on and that they could support the programs. We have an all-staff conference at the beginning of the year to let all of the teachers and faculty know this is what we plan on doing. This is what we I want to do. These are the updates. And I, along with the SRO, have a regular presence in the hall. So I'm always listening to anyone's concerns and ideas. And I take that feedback, bring it to the team, and then we make some decisions. Recently, we just did one about paper curtailment, right? And we were like 1.1 million copies. The last conference, we just reduced that after some simple posters and letting everyone know 20% reduction in paper use. So maybe the copiers will run a little bit longer today. We'll see. All right, next slide. All right, and then finally, there's recognition, right? So we feel that sharing your experience leads to opportunity. Once you're aware of an opportunity, this can lead to change. And once you start to make change, this totally can lead to improvement. And this was our mission throughout this whole thing, was to make sure that everything we did, that we share with as many people as possible. So we didn't pursue any of this outside recognition. It just came from sharing. People said, "Oh, this is great. You know, you need to just fill out an application for Green Print Pioneer," and we succeeded, right? or you need to do efficient and healthy schools because your plan is phenomenal, right? So, and we won best in class for solution strategists. So it's not about boasting, it's just about sharing, and that positive things can come from it. And these are just some credentials that let you say, yeah, what we're doing is right. I mean, these types of things help not only me feel good about it, right? It helps the Board of Education feel good about it to say, hey, other people in the nation think we're doing a good job, right? So that's really what this is all about. And of course, I wanted to thank you. And there's my email on the bottom if you have any wish to contact me after this webinar. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't overrun too long.
No, it's just fine, Fran. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
perfect.
Awesome to learn about the great work that you're doing there. If you don't mind also dropping your email in the chat for folks to get it that way. I expect people will want to follow up, but we will have some time for questions at the end. However, I want to move on to our second presenter before we do Q&A time, and that's my colleague Brett Peters. He is commercial energy advisor at the Accelerator with our AMPed Clean Energy Hub. This is a NYSERDA regional hub program that we have. In his role, Brett assists businesses and commercial spaces around the Finger Lakes with transitioning to clean energy technologies. And he can speak to the incentives that still exist for this kind of work, especially in consideration of federal funds that are disappearing at the end of the year. And he can also speak to other things that have come up in his work doing commercial energy advising. So, Brett, I'll pass it over to you next.
Thanks so much, Brady. And hard to follow. Oh, can everyone hear me okay and see my screen okay? Awesome. Hard to follow up that amazing presentation by Fran. And I hope Brady can arrange a field trip over to the Canajoharie School District because I really want to see all of these great investments that were talked about. We did not coordinate our presentations ahead of time, so I may have some redundant information on here. I will do my best to skip through that so we can get into the Q&A section because I know questions for Fran I'd like to throw his way. But yeah, thank you again for having me. Main goals for the session, I'm going to talk about, why are schools a good candidate for energy efficiency and clean heating and cooling systems. I'm going to talk a bit about why you should get your energy study, as if Fran's presentation didn't already demonstrate why they're very valuable. And I'll also talk a bit about some of the programs that are still here that have survived the kind of federal funding chaos we've been seeing. Um, but yeah, it's Brady teed up. We are essentially the Finger Lakes Clean Energy Hub. We serve the whole 9 county Finger Lakes region. We are a free resource. I want to stress that. We have a team of, really expert advisors who are able to kind of diagnose any building type, whether it's residential, multifamily, mobile home, any commercial space. And essentially, we'll do our best to connect you to programs and resources that can help your building electrify. Yeah, I want to stress, we are free, are impartial. We can also escalate things to NYSERDA directly, so utilize us if you have any kind of issues with NYSERDA. And I think most people here are aware of what the Accelerator does, but essentially the Accelerator is the umbrella organization for AMPed for the Clean Energy Hub. And just a bit of our services. I'm going to breeze past this. We do offer that energy advisor call service 5 days a week. Again, that free and impartial support. All right, so where do we start with energy efficiency for schools? First off, I'd like to ask, why consider schools for energy efficiency? They have a pretty consistent heating and cooling need. You think, on a chilly winter day, all the students are kind of getting there around 8 a.m. or 7 a.m., starting their homeroom class. And that's kind of when you can fire up the system and get it ready. Or in the summer, if there's summer school, it's probably the same time every day that people are going to be using the building, and you can kind of plan for those consistent energy need peaks during, cooling and heating months. Many buildings have what we call legacy systems. Legacy meaning it's a heating system that's powered by fossil fuels, uses combustion technology to rapidly heat the space. And they are legacy systems, which means there is better, newer alternatives that are out there that schools can consider with their energy planning needs. Um, Obviously, schools can be a great candidate for solar due to roofs, or as Fran's presentation pointed out, open green space, next to a bus depot. And obviously, with the schedule for school buses, pickup and drop off, pretty consistent charging needs for electric school buses. And there's usually a centralized depot where the whole district will store their buses. So it makes a lot of sense to invest in EV charging and consider electric school buses because there's lots of great incentives that are out there. And I don't dig too much into that in my presentation, but I'm happy to connect anyone, or I'm sure Fran can connect people to the resources that Canajoharie use for their electric school bus. I'd like to kind of preface some of the barriers that we see with school energy upgrades. So, as any funding priority with a school, capital costs are the main barrier, especially with these legacy systems. Having them go under during, peak school occupation by staff and students during the winter can be a heating emergency, and it may kind of lock the school into, replacing that system with a one-to-one replacement because they didn't have sufficient time to plan and, get approval from the district and board. And, if you have this emergency arise, and you're locked into that fossil fuel system for another, 20, 40 years, um, the district might regret it down the line, especially as more and more schools are moving away from fossil fuels. Navigating applications can be a huge barrier as well, especially if there's, only one or a handful of maintenance people, or considering availability for superintendents as far as investing time into these lengthy grant applications. That's something at the hub, the Energy Hub, that we like to help with, assisting with applications and helping teams get together the appropriate materials for applications. So that can be a barrier that we can kind of help address at the Energy Hub. And schools also fall into kind of a weird gray area as far as sectors go for incentives. Some schools may fall under municipal incentives. Some may, like a charter school may fall under a private entity sector. So a lot of grants tend to exclude schools when they are, obviously large commercial buildings that could really benefit from these upgrades. So why consider clean heating and cooling for schools? I like to point out, there's definitely a lot of studies tying childhood asthma to, fossil fuel combustion. I think there was a recent study that attributes around 12% of childhood asthma rates in the U.S. to gas stoves. And obviously, a lot of parents are concerned and may want, gas and fossil fuel combustion removed from schools because it can contribute to childhood asthma, as these studies have shown. There's lots of other kind of unsung benefits of considering, air source, geothermal, and variable refrigerant systems. Um, as Fran's presentation pointed out, cooling is a huge benefit, especially if a lot of schools were, built a long time ago and they were maybe built in an era where there wasn't as much of a need for cooling because schools are usually let out in the summer, and now we're seeing it's getting hotter earlier in the year, in April and May, and it's still hot in September when school comes back. So that is a desire for schools to consider cooling with these kind of older buildings. As I mentioned, air quality, impact on childhood asthma. Heat pumps are self-filtering, which is a major improvement for air quality compared to legacy, combustion fossil fuel systems. And tech improvements. We still get the, question at the hub, do heat pumps work in this climate? And, the answer is yes, they make cold climate heat pumps. Heat pump technology has come a very, very far way, and they're better suited to tackle upstate New York winters than ever. Geothermal obviously has a very high upfront install cost, but it's going to save you the most month-to-month money for heating and cooling, just due to its lower energy usage with that loop system. And it's a great, lifetime investment for the school. It's that loop is going to last, 25 to 50 years in the ground without needing any replacement. If a part breaks, it's going to be the accessible blower system that can, be swapped out. They're not going to have to retrench for a very long time. And a barrier with geothermal that we see in like the residential or small business space is just lack of land. But the upside, as Fran's presentation pointed out, schools have parking lots, schools have athletic fields that you can put geothermal loops under. That's kind of a built-in benefit for schools to consider geothermal. All right, I'm going to talk about energy audit programs for schools. Um, So if your school has not got an energy audit in the last couple of years, it's a great time to do so. NYSERDA heavily subsidizes them for priority or disadvantaged community districts. It will kind of lay out this very long report showcasing short-term and long-term energy saving opportunities, usually with an ROI on how much they estimate these improvements to cost and what the payback period will be. Um, some investments may not have a clear payback period like geothermal until you factor in other incentives. So it's good to kind of sit down after getting your audit and talk with the hub, talk with, experts about, hey, what funding sources can we braid in to lower the ROI of this investment? And a lot of grant opportunities will require a recent, within 3-year energy audit. So it's good to kind of have one up to date and handy if any funding opportunity pops up really quickly. You need to, apply for that. It's good to have your energy audit ready so you're not, left out with this grant opportunity. So as Fran pointed out, I think previously the audits were kind of done through the track one of the P through 12 Clean Green Schools program. The website for that program seems to be down right now. I think NYSERDA has kind of rolled it into the Flex Tech program, as Fran mentioned. Flex has a scaling cost share coverage for P through 12 schools, and it's a great program because it can cover a lot of different audits or study types. You can do, one study or multiple studies. And I've kind of highlighted some of the main ones that a school district would probably want to consider, like an energy saving study, creating an energy plan, a climate action plan, clean heating and cooling for their building, or a school bus electrification plan. I know in Greece, where I am, the district just had this big vote on whether to invest in electric school buses or not, and the vote failed just because they had been hearing mixed things from the utility about adding too much load to the grid, and the school district was worried about making the jump to EVs, and now they've kind of kicked that can down the road farther. And I wish they had done a school bus electrification plan because that could have really helped them out before this decision. So I'm going to walk through how to access FlexTech for any districts that are interested. We can help you at the hub determine your cost share eligibility. Schools in DACs that have not done FlexTech or Clean Green Schools in the last 2 years are eligible for that 100% cost share, so having the study completely paid for. Schools that have done it in the last 2 years can get a 75% cost share, and all other schools are a 50% cost share. And this is a big no. A lot of NYSERDA programs do require you to be in a SBC paying area. So municipal customers that don't pay into the SBC cannot access NYSERDA programs usually. And the SBC, for anyone who doesn't know, service benefit charge, essentially a small tax on energy usage that funds these state energy programs. But yeah, there is no SBC requirement, so no like geo exclusion based on where the district is. All districts around New York State can apply for this. A quick map showing Monroe County's DAC areas. Also have a list later on in the presentation of districts that can qualify for the Track 2 funding for the P through 12 Clean Green Schools program. We work with a number of consultants that do flex tech studies, so I can definitely help anyone, connect to a consultant that wants to do a study. And again, the application does require a scope of work. So what kind of studies do you want to focus on? A schedule. So when do we need this done by? Do we need the studies done by January to apply for a grant in March? and a budget. The budget can be zero. I tell, Flex Tech customers that if they really are stingy and don't want to pay anything towards the study, it can be a $0 budget, but you're obviously looking at a less comprehensive study that way. Um, but yeah, this is kind of, putting that green team together as Fran showed in his presentation. Um, putting together professionals or, concerned individuals in the district to, formulate what do we want to tackle with this energy study, the scope of work for the program. After receiving your report, you should set up that meeting with your green team, the auditor, the hub, and then maybe consider, summarizing it at a school board meeting and presenting on the findings, and then decide what funding to target to make these upgrades a possibility. And I'm going to jump into what programs are still out there to implement some of these things. So, clean green schools. This is one we've mentioned a couple times. You can kind of consider Flex Tech or the P through 12 study, the track one, whereas the track two is the actual implementation. It's this kind of contest or competitive funding round. If funding was just kind of bolstered by the Clean Water, Clean Air Environmental Bond Act of 2022, which we all probably remember voting on. Uh, it is a competitive retrofit program, so it really focuses on retrofitting schools with legacy systems rather than new builds. And as Fran mentioned, we are expecting a third round of funding in early 2026. That's what the website says, but from my experience, it normally comes up in July every other year. So this is a great time to kind of start thinking about if your district should apply for the implementation track. And don't really need to get into the examples too much because we had some great examples from the last presentation. I did not see any in Monroe County, unfortunately. I'd like to see more, in our region, but I was seeing some in Western New York and Central New York and Southern Tier. So this is the list of Monroe County districts that qualify for Track 2 implementation. Obviously, these are some pretty large districts. Um, and I can definitely send anyone who's interested other counties if that's relevant to them. But yeah, if you are in one of these districts, it's great to kind of consider that flex tech process and start planning on what you want to apply for with this next round of funding. We can also help with getting cost estimates together from commercial contractors. We have a couple that we work with. All right. Next program to talk about is the consolidated funding application. This is essentially a annual release of funding, normally announced in May, and it's administered through the regional economic development councils. And there's a number of different sectors that this funding applies to. It's normally a pretty quick turnaround time, announced in May, and then applications normally due in July. So it gives you about, 2 to 3 months to put the application together. So a lot of applicants I work with start planning over the winter even for a July application. But the one that's relevant for um, schools is the commercial and industrial carbon challenge. Like P through 12, Clean Green Schools is a competitive, challenge. Um, but it is an annual round of funding, so we kind of know we can apply for it every year, especially if, you're denied from Clean Green Schools, you could potentially get awarded this, but you couldn't stack both funding sources. But they normally look for projects to meet a 30% energy savings benchmark. But it can go towards anything with energy efficiency, retrofits, clean heating. I think solar has to meet certain requirements to be approved by the Carbon Industrial Challenge. But you can apply for multiple project types. So, for example, if you're trying to hit that 30% energy savings, you could consider, applying for geothermal and, for example, electrifying the school bus depot and putting in EV chargers. And that could all be one project application as long as it met that energy saving benchmark. And I'll mention direct pay. Direct pay, previously a lot of schools were shut out of direct pay if they had a municipal element. But schools can get that 30 to 50% credit as a direct payment for solar and geothermal. People may know that the residential direct pay credit is ending for solar and geo at the end of this year, but commercial buildings have a bit longer of a window. They essentially have to be executed. The contract has to be signed by July 4th, 2026. So we have about, a 7-month window for any solar or geothermal considerations to access this direct pay credit. So if any schools are kind of on the fence about jumping on solar or geo, it's obviously a really significant funding source, especially working in, getting up to that 50% back, for schools that are in a, disadvantaged community or schools that are in a legacy, uh, I think fuel oil or fossil fuel district. And I can definitely check, other, requirements that would get a project up to that 50% cap. Um, but yeah, obviously a pretty quick turnaround time. If anyone wants to talk to a solar or geothermal installer about getting an estimate together, I can definitely catch you. And I think the last program I'm going to talk about is CPACE. CPACE is essentially a financing program for commercial property owners to obtain low-cost, long-term financing. So we're thinking, anywhere from a 16 to 30-year loan. It's essentially a agreement between private financiers and municipal taxes. So the municipality has to opt into CPACE and sign an agreement to make this type of financing available. It essentially leverages this project as a public good, and the bit more on the next slide. It functions not really like a traditional loan payment, so essentially the energy bill savings pay for the improvement over time, similar to like an on-bill recovery financing scheme. The usual barrier for CPACE we run into is just project costs. These private lenders look more for projects that have a, floor of $2 million. So school projects are a great fit for CPACE if you're looking for financing because most school projects will be well over that $2 million cutoff. Like I mentioned, some municipalities don't allow CPACE, some do. Monroe County does. But if you want to check if your municipality or county does, we can definitely help you with that. And just threw up a case study for Shrub Oak boarding school in Westchester County. They had a case study on their CPACE loan. 16-year loan, essentially the improvements are supposed to pay for themselves within that 16-year time frame. So that's why and Westchester's opted into CPACE financing, and their project included lighting, HVAC, and building envelope. All right. So before we get into Q&A, again, I'll plug the Energy Advisor call service, and that's my info right there. If anyone needs my email, I will drop it in the chat as well. But yeah, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Brett. And now we do have a few more minutes for questions here, but we only have until 1 o'clock. So make sure you get Fran and or Brett's contact information from the chat in case you have additional questions. But if anyone wants to raise their hand to ask a question out loud or drop it in the chat, this is our Q&A time. Actually, I'll start with this question from the chat here from Katie. This is for Fran. How did you ensure that these cold climate heat pumps will function as described throughout the coldest days in winter?
So they have a threshold of a certain number. And as part of the project, we are maintaining the boilers as a, what's the word? It's not redundant, but
Like
as a,
backup.
yeah, but there's the, I can't think of the word, supplementary. Okay, so if we get too cold, we still have supplementary heat through, as Brett mentioned, through our legacy system. But part of the next building project is changing these old boilers to high efficiency condensing boilers. So we'll be able to turn them down when they're not needed, or even when they fire, they'll be at very low. So we have a secondary system to ensure that they will be viable. If they are not during super cold temperatures, we still can provide heat.
Thank you. I see Brett. I also see Dave. Dave, I saw you unmute before, so actually I'm going to go Dave first, and then we'll go to Brett.
So, Fran, what would that operating temperature be for proper performance where you wouldn't need the boilers as your secondary source? Do you know what that is technically?
So I believe that number is -20.
Fahrenheit?
Yep,
Okay, well, that's pretty good then.
it's pretty good.
It is, and that doesn't happen too often. Then the second question I have for your bus fleet, how many buses do you have in your fleet, and is that solar farms specifically for the bus garage application?
So we have 17 buses in our fleet. The
Okay,
solar farm is not specifically for that because we only have one electric bus at this point. But
correct.
if the mandate comes to full fruition, we will have a high electrical demand.
And you could drive that off your solar
We can
farm, or
drive that
would you
off
get into the
yes,
grid? Okay,
yes.
all right. And what was the kW usage you said?
For the solar field,
Solar farm? Yeah.
so it's almost 700 DC.
Okay.
Yep. And the
And
AC,
all
you have to
the
convert it by the inverter efficiency rating to get AC numbers, but I would have to do the math.
All right. And one of my other questions are already answered by somebody, so that's all I have for now. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Yeah, if a presenter can ask another presenter a question, I'd love to know more about the time frame. How many years of planning kind of went into all these projects together.
So the solar was looked at years ago, but the grid did not have the capability. It was like a $3 million transformer substation upgrade, which crushed the financials on the utility side, crushed the financials of the project. So it was never looked at again. I started in 2023. So that's when I pulled the solar out and said, let's look at a new system. Basically started from scratch. The geothermal, the buses, all of this, the air source, the rooftop solar. So it's been 2 years. But I have to say that we're no different than any other school. The only difference is that there's a dedicated person to take care of this situation. This is what I focus on. This is all I do. Yes, I go into the classroom. I enjoy that part and share the energy technology, but that's not all day, right? That's once a week maybe. So it's really boils down to having a dedicated energy manager on site, and the Flex Tech does have an OSEM program to provide other people like me to districts. So
Great. Well, thank you, Fran and Brett. And with that, I think we'll wrap things up here. Or Amber, if you
I
got a
just
1 minute question.
I just want to direct a question from Mary Caitlin White. It sounds like the first step is to have a conversation with Brett about an energy audit. Would that be the recommendation?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I've come out to the schools as well to meet with staff there and walk through the energy audit application. I can help you determine what the cost share is for the audit and what you'd like to focus on for the audit.
Good. Well, great note to end on there. Thank you for bringing that one to everyone's attention, Amber. And one last thank you for our presenters. I'll stop the recording.